Sri Devi Mataji, I'll make you a co-host. Hare Krishna devotees, I welcome you all to the series of the overview of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1. This is the fourth and the last class amongst the four classes, the three classes that we took earlier. We'll be looking at the last section of Srimad Bhagavatam today and the question, answers, etc., which are relevant to your interview. Let us begin with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatari. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utpada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagara Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagara Lalitam Shri Vishakhan Vitasya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Vasindubhya Evacha Patita Nama Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudire. Surnatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hradayanta Soyabhadrani Vidunoti Suresita Nashtrapraeshva Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. We completed up to chapter 12 yesterday, wherein we went through the first three chapters, which were mainly the Srimad Bhagavatam and their Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Chapter 2, Divine Activities and Divinity, and chapter 3, Lord Krishna is the source of all incarnation. We then studied three subsequent chapters which describes the Srila Vyasadeva writing Srimad Bhagavatam, purpose of writing, instruction by Narada Muni, and ultimately conversation between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva has written Srimad Bhagavatam. His son Sukadeva Goswami is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam for the first time to Parikshit Maharaj, and Vyasadeva is the spiritual master of Sukadeva Goswami. Narad Muni is a spiritual master of Vyasadeva. After that, we looked at 6 other chapters and went through until we reached the birth of Parikshit Maharaj. There is a twist now in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is not chronologically based, it's based subject wise. And in subject also, each and every canto has almost all the subjects, but 1 or 2 of the subjects are predominant. And that's how the predominant area is taken as important for that particular canto. The chapter 13 is Dhritarashtra quits home. Dhritarashtra has been a character which is quite different. In Bhagavad Gita, he utters the first sloka and then probably he goes asleep. He doesn't understand what Lord Krishna is telling, and ultimately the whole Bhagavad Gita is a bouncer ball for him. Let's look at the chapter summary. First 7 verses are described into returning of Vidura from from pilgrimage to Hastinapur. If I tell you the background of it, there was a discussion about Pandavas being given some portion of kingdom so that they can subsist themselves as Kshatriyas, follow their occupational duties, and live their life peacefully. However, Duryodhana flatly refuses to even give size of a land as pinhead. This is where Vidura, the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, who has also been the spiritual master and the guide of Dhritarashtra and Kauravas and Pandavas in the palace, is describing Duryodhana as a bad son who cannot perform any kind of a rites and allow Dhritarashtra to have a peaceful life after death. And so he is advising that Dhritarashtra must at once leave his son Duryodhana and stop further infighting in the family. This suddenly turns the table, and Duryodhana utters several sentences very badly insulting his uncle Vidura, and including telling him that he is the Sudra, he is a Dasi Putra, and he has no knowledge. He is actually trying to destroy where he is eating. This puts Vidura completely off, and he decides to leave the palace. Mind you, this was before the Kurukshetra war even begins. Vidura decides to leave the palace. He leaves his bows and arrows, leaves all his prescribed duties as a Kshatriya, and leaves the palace barehanded. He decides to go to pilgrimage, and while the war of Kurukshetra was going on, and the end of the war, etc., he had been through various pilgrimage places. He just now returns back when Yudhishthira is ruling the planet. He has been one of the most successful ruler on the planet, and King Parikshit has just been born. As soon as Vidura arrives, Dhritarashtra and Yudhishthira, and he welcomes him. And then Yudhishthira in detail describes all the good things that Uncle Vidura had done for young Pandavas during their tough time, and how he had at various times saved Pandavas from various disasters. So this is where the chapter begins, that Vidura is returning from pilgrimage, and then subsequent verses from 8 to 13 describes the conversation between Yudhishthira and Vidura. The conversation is mainly based on the standard Vedic principles of describing, asking questions to someone who just returns from long voyage. First, they give asana, give them glass of water and some food to eat, then request them to rest for a while. And after they have recovered from journey's tiredness with their tummy full, they wake up, and that's when the family welcomes them and asks about each other's well-being. And so Yudhishthira is asking in detail to Vidura about his various pilgrimages. How did he survive? What did he do? Where did he go? Etc. etc. And this conversation has been in these 7 verses. Verse 14 to 17 describes the purpose why Vidura has now come and is going to stay in Hastinapur. Subsequent verses describes Vidura chastising Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra has lost the war. He has lost all his men and all his money, and is still in the hope of becoming a king again, being the senior-most in the Kuru dynasty, has been staying in the palace, surviving on the money given by Pandavas. These are the same Pandavas where Dhritarashtra actually, time and again, put them into lots of difficulties which they had to suffer, and still they survived all the difficulties. Not only that, it is the same Dhritarashtra who tried to take their lives several times, and still Pandavas had survived. And so Vidura takes this chance to chastise Dhritarashtra, saying that you are actually having the piece of chapati as if it is thrown to a dog, and you are taking this from people whom you put into trouble all the time and even wanted to kill them. He especially takes the name of Bhima because Bhima had been responsible in killing Duryodhan and Dusashan. Both these children were predominantly affectionate to Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra had a special love and affection for them. They actually were the king's pain in all nefarious activities that they imagined, created, and then put into plans. Ultimately, the idea is to tell Dhritarashtra that he is clinging to material life, which he should have left long back. He has already passed through one prasthashram. It is too late now, but he still has to find the liberation and go through the spiritual path. However, Dhritarashtra has been blind, not just physically, but even blind in the spiritual aspect of soul, and he has no knowledge of Krishna's science. Since he had no knowledge, he had been clinging to the material life all through his life. Ultimately, after extensive chastising of Vidura, Dhritarashtra realizes his mistakes in front of Gandhari, and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura leave the palace without informing anyone and goes to the retirement and ultimately seeking the absolute Lord. Yudhishthira, being a very pious king, realizes that they have left, and thus he is lamenting that it is his responsibility to look after Dhritarashtra, his uncle, who looked after them when they were small children and their father died. And so he is lamenting, and this lamenting has been reversed, or the effect was destroyed or dispelled by Narad Muni, which we will see later on, telling him that separation and union in the living entity and amongst the living entity is being planned by Lord himself. And in that process, no one can do anything. In other words, Narad Muni explains, giving an example, that it is like a match, a player, all the players are set for a particular match by a captain. And then once the play is over, all the players are called back home. Lord Krishna acts as a captain here. We'll be now looking at the Dhritarashtra versus Dhruthari. What is the meaning of Dhritarashtra? It's a nutshell description of Dhritarashtra. It's very nicely written by Srila Prabhupada. Dhritarashtra was the eldest son of his father, and therefore, according to law, he was to be installed on the throne of Hastinapur. But because he was blind from birth, he was disqualified from his rightful claim. But he could not forget the bereavement, and his disappointment was somewhat compensated after the death of Pandu, his younger brother. His younger brother left behind him some minor children, and Dhritarashtra became the natural guardian of them. But at heart, he wanted to become the actual king and hand the kingdom over to his own sons, headed by Duryodhana. With all these imperial ambitions, Dhritarashtra wanted to become a king, and he contrived all sorts of intrigues in consultation with his brother-in-law Sakuni. But everything failed by the will of the Lord, and at the last stage, even after losing everything, man and money, he wanted to remain as king, being the eldest uncle of the Maharaja in this state. So that's the bad and the sad part, that one man who is blind has no philosophical background, is completely blind towards the transcendental knowledge, let aside the science of Lord Krishna, and has not been having any religious perception, had been the head of the dynasty at some stage. This is an overview where Dhritarashtra ultimately quits home. He quits home in anger. He has been chastised very badly by his younger brother, and thus he leaves the home. Narad Muni shatters Maharaj Yudhishthir's lamentation and illusion created by his elder uncle Dhritarashtra and Gandhari leaving the palace along with Vidura without informing Yudhishthir, he being the king at that time. Sloka 1.13.41 explains, Sri Narada said, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and their leader carry on worship to be well protected. And this sentence is very important. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them. Here, He means Lord Krishna. In verse 10.5.25, many planks and sticks, unable to stay together, are carried away by the force of a river waves. When the jungle, you cut the planks and the sticks of the wood, you throw them in the river, and the river water carries them further to the end of near the ocean. That's what is described here. Similarly, this is important again, although we are intimately related with friends and family members, we are unable to stay together because of our very past deeds and the waves of time. Dhritarashtra is lamenting, and so he is being explained that he doesn't need to lament at all. In the last verse, 1.13.43, as a player sets up and disperses his playing according to his own sweet will, so the supreme will of the Lord brings men together and separates them. So we don't need to worry about separation. It's part and parcel of the life for living entity, and living entity has no control over them. The next important chapter is disappearance of Lord Krishna from the earth. Lord Krishna had taken birth for protection of his devotees, liberation of those devotees who wish to go back, killing of those miscreants who are causing disturbances on the earth and preventing the devotees to live a happy and peaceful life, and for the propagation of Sanatan Dharma. Let's look at the chapter summary. First 10 verses describes Yudhishthir's perception of various omens or indication of bad things happening. So Maharaj Yudhishthir suspects, looking at all the omens, bad omens, that probably Lord Krishna is disappeared from the face of earth. Maharaj Yudhishthir from 11 to 20, that means first 20 verses, describes various omens and bad signs that are existing in nature and in the day-to-day life, picked up by Maharaj Yudhishthir as bad signs and suspecting that Lord Krishna has that. Arjuna went to Dwarka. He was sent to Dwarka by Maharaj Yudhishthir some 7 months ago to find out the friends and relatives in Yadu dynasty, how they all are doing, their well-being, and further plan of Lord Krishna to directly get from his mouth. However, Arjuna took 7 long months and did not return. And Arjuna did not send any message also. This was one of the suspicions of Yudhishthira Maharaj, that since there is no message from Arjuna and he has lived longer, he has stayed longer than expected, probably Lord Krishna may have disappeared. When Arjuna returns back after 7 months, Arjuna had lost his body composure, had lost his luster of life, and was puzzled and not happy at all. And so Yudhishthira inquires about the welfare of all the Yadus. Remember, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is one of the perfect person on the face of the earth. And so you never inquire about well-being of perfect person. Krishna has right to inquire about our well-being, but we presume that Krishna is always the best and always well. So in subsequent verses, Yudhishthira glorifies Krishna and Krishna's influences. Arjuna's welfare is again inquired by Krishna Yudhishthira. So if you look at it, he is first asking about Yadu dynasty. Then he is glorifying Krishna and his influences on Pandavas. And then subsequently he is describing and asking about the welfare of Arjuna himself. And lastly, Yudhishthira finally inquires about Lord Krishna's situation. So that comes as a last question, though politely and understanding, Yudhishthira understanding that this is not the questions devotees ask. We all living beings have fear, and fear is the thing which keeps us disciplined, which keeps us regulated. And once the fear is removed from us, we become completely liberated or mukta. The question asked here is, how Yadus achieved fearlessness? I would like you to know this concept very well, and that's why I have brought it here. This has been asked as question many a times. A forgetful conditioned soul is fearful, but a liberated soul is never fearful, just as small child completely dependent on the mercy of his father is never fearful of anyone. Fearfulness is a sort of illusion for the living being when he is in a slumber and forgetting his eternal relation with the Lord. Since the living being is never to die by his constitution, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.20, then what is the cause of fearfulness? And this is what Srila Prabhupada explains, which we will see in a moment. Example, a person fearful of tiger in a dream. Thus, the member of the Yadu dynasty were fully awake in their service to the Lord, and therefore there was no tiger for them to be afraid of at the time, at any time. Even if there were a real tiger, the Lord was there to protect them. The example that Srila Prabhupada gives is when a man is sleeping is basically half awake. He sees the tiger and he starts afraiding about it, and so he becomes fearful. However, man sitting next to him is awake, and for him there is no tiger there. But if there is no tiger, and so he has no fear. If we really look at it, tiger is not there either with the man who is awake or the man who is sleeping. And so the fear created by tiger is the fear which is not worth having. That's the typical example and analogy that Srila Prabhupada uses. And so here it is saying that Yadu dynasty is a dynasty of people who are always with Lord Krishna wherever Lord Krishna goes or wherever Lord Krishna takes birth. These are the same people when Lord Krishna took birth as Ramachandra. They all came along and they all had all the pastimes that we see in Ramayana. Since they are all awakened, they all are liberated, they definitely know that there is no tiger. And that's why they are fearless. They also know that since they are completely surrendered to Lord and so close to Lord, it's a part and parcel of paraphernalia of Lord Krishna. It's not a small thing. It's a very, very big thing. And because the Lord is there to give protection, even if there is a tiger, they are not worried about tiger at all. So this is the concept you must worth understand. Everybody has part of concepts as dejections, and these dejections are especially common in Kshatriyas because they deal with what is called life and death. And for them, since they can't take charity at any moment, any question comes in, their life is always at stake. Even if they go for a fight, their life is at stake. These are the texts which describes the dejections, the different causes of dejections in Kshatriya. Bad health, disrespected or neglected, someone addresses them unfriendly or threatens them when he cannot give charity or when he is not able to keep any promise, not being able to give protection. Especially, our scripture tells that Brahmanas, children, cows, women, and diseased or old people must be protected by all grihasthas, and that is the primary duty of all grihasthas. The ranking is done as number one is children, number two is women, number three is old age people and diseased people, number four is Brahmana, and fifth is cow. If someone contacts a woman of impeachable character, or there is any disrespect to a very deserving woman and being defeated by either someone equal or inferior, and lastly, taking one's means away without checking anything, anyone is hungry outside. These are the common causes of rejection for Kshatriya. So disappearance of Lord Krishna is a thing that has happened. Krishna has completed his pastimes, completed his mission that he came for. He killed so many asuras, so many bad people. And in the war of Kurukshetra, he killed millions and millions of Duratmas and still gave them all the complete liberation of same kind. Lord Krishna had been the main cause of Pandava's sustaining, and he had been responsible for bringing Yudhishthira's ring to the planet Earth. And he had been successful in creating the rule of Pandava. Pandavas never thought that they were kings and queens or they are royalties, but they simply thought as the devotee, and thus, since they were pure devotees of the Lord, they acted as messenger. And whenever the messages came from Lord Krishna, the whole kingdom was ruled as per those directions and messages. Since the messages and the rules and regulations were directly provided by Lord Krishna, there were no ambiguity, and all the rules and regulations that were formed were very precise and perfect. They never needed any change or amendments. You and I know that nowadays, if the rule is created, there are 10,000 amendments that comes for that rule. And at times, the explanation of the rule is much smaller and the amendment makes the whole book. These rules and regulations were so perfectly written by Apurusheya or Lord himself, and the kings were working as the pure devotees of the Lord, and thus these rules and regulations stood the test of time and all three dimensions, and thus they were absolutely truthful and correct even for today's environment. Pandavas had decided that they will not think about anything and thus do the Lord's duty given to them of doing a very nice ruling of the entire planet and keeping everyone happy, protected, and flourishing. However, now the Krishna has disappeared, and as the story would be broken by Arjuna gradually, not only Krishna has gone, but Krishna made all the Yadu dynasty to fight amongst themselves and kill them, each other. So all of them would go back to Goloka Vrindavan together. After the outcome of Lord Krishna and the Yadu dynasty, there was very little left for Pandavas to do things on the planet Earth. Narad Muni had explained once to them that if Lord Krishna leaves, you can decide to retire from your active life and proceed for Vanaprasthashram and then Sannyasashram. Mind you, such liberated souls and pure devotees always get their messages through people like such huge personalities of Narada Rishi, telling them well in advance what to do and after what time that thing be done. And so Pandavas decide to leave the kingdom to the grandson Parikshit Maharaj. Chapter summary. Arjuna has started picking up the feeling of separation from Lord Krishna and recalls Lord Krishna's favors and protections. When person is not there, you feel their absence much more strong. And that's why people living overseas, and I have my own experience. When I lived overseas for 10 years, I had much more patriotism in me because I was away from India. Arjuna remembers the favors and protection, also remembering intimate moments that Arjuna passed with Krishna. Arjuna focuses on the Lord's instructions and attains transcendence. Arjuna had been very fortunate when he said that I don't want to fight the war because all in front of me are my own people, my elders, my gurus, my relatives, and my friends. And it war means that I'll have to kill all my people. Then there is no fun left if all people die, with whom to enjoy the life. At that time, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita for 45 minutes. And those were the instructions, intimate instructions given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna directly. And that's the instructions that is being talked about here. Yudhishthira decides to retire as well. See, when you are not working for the sake of material gains, then you can easily decide very positively the right things. And thus, other Pandavas, Draupadis, also decide to retire, and all of them depart, leaving the entire kingdom to Parikshit Maharaj. Now comes Parikshit Maharaj's portion of Srimad Bhagavatam, and chapter 16, 17, 18, and 19 are four chapters that describes in detail Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj had been a pure devotee of the God, and that's why he was fortunate to see the Lord in the womb of Uttara when he was not even born. His vivid description of the Lord in the womb is so narrative and so nice that once you listen to that, you feel as if the nectar is really being poured into the ears. Parikshit Maharaj had been very famous in ruling dynasties. It's because he receives the age of Kali. The Kali Yuga begins soon after the Parikshit Maharaj left. So Kali or Kali Yuga had just begun during the reign of Parikshit Maharaj. But Parikshit Maharaj, being the pure devotee and one of the first class rulers of the earth, inherited the Yudhishthira Maharaj's administration, which is considered to be equal to Ramarajya. He also had a similar Rajya being created and maintained. Kali could not do much while Maharaj Parikshit was alive. However, Parikshit Maharaj receives Kali in a form which is vividly described in Srimad Bhagavatam as a person who is Shudra but is wearing a dress of a king and is kicking the cow and the bull. Cow is the earth, and cow is considered respectable. Bull and cow both are very important in our Sanatan Dharma, and bull is considered to be the Dharma, and cow is considered to be Dhara. And they live on the four basic principles. Kali, or a Shudra with a royal dress, is kicking them and hitting with the various weapons. And three of their legs are broken and they are standing only on one leg. So Dharma and Dhara has a precarious condition. Dharma is not standing on the four legs that it is supposed to. It is only standing on cleanliness. The rest of the part of Dharma has gone. And Dhara, which is supposed to produce abundance of food and other surviving material, including the material for pleasure, like special metals, jewels, diamonds, and pearls, has also not been treated very well. And so there has been a widespread droughts all along, producing less and less grains as the Kali Yuga establishes. So this vivid description of Kali Yuga entering into the kingdom of Maharaj Parikshit, Maharaj Parikshit catches Kali Yuga or Kali, and Kali immediately stops eating cow and the bull and accepts the superiority of Maharaj Parikshit, and thus he immediately asks for a pardon. While Maharaj Parikshit was being very gracious and pardons him, doesn't take his life, he becomes little more anxious and goes further developing courage to ask for a place to live in the kingdom. There were 4 places given to him by Kali Maharaj, by Parikshit Maharaj, places where the gambling is going on, places where the intoxication is going on, places where the meat eating is going on, and the places where the prostitution is prevalent. In the days of Parikshit Maharaj, his kingdom did not have all these 4 places at all, and thus Kali had no place to live. So Kali comes back and says that there is no place for me to live in your kingdom because the places that you describe are not existing in this Sati Yuga and Dwapar Yuga. And so Maharaj Parikshit also adds one more place for Kali to live, and that is wherever there is mass of gold or the wealth is there. This is where Kali is being received by Parikshit Maharaj, and this is the small story behind it. This will certainly help you answer questions that comes up regarding the conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Kali. Punishments and rewards of Kali, I described to you that he did not give, he gave only one punishment, that he must restrict his residence in the kingdom. And the rewards that he received is 5 places where he could reside easily. Parikshit Maharaj had been on a trip of hunting and he was coming back. And while coming back, he was tired, exhausted, and very thirsty. He came to the ashram of Sanuka Rishi, who had been a rishi and a very pious sage, running a gurukul there. When Parikshit Maharaj visited the place, Rishi Maharaj was in a deep meditation and he could not give respect, get up, or ask for any basic things that we have in Vedic literature, like giving them asana to sit, offering them water and then the food to eat. Take some rest before you further go. But he was in a deep meditation and king did not understand that he was in a meditation. He thought that Rishi was neglecting him, and thus, in anger, he put a dead serpent around the neck of Rishi Maharaj where he was meditating. He went further from there, and the young boy Shringi of Saunaka Rishi came, Samika Rishi came, and he saw a dead serpent around the neck of his father. He got angry, and the Brahmana boy getting angry, he's an immature boy of only 14 years, He didn't know in detail who Parikshit Maharaj was. He had no idea about Parikshit Maharaj being the protector of Brahmana and Sanatana Dharma, and such a pious person who was a pure devotee of the Lord. He cursed that whosoever did this must die in 7 days, and that he would die by a snake dropped by a bird, and snake would cut the person and poison him. As soon as Samika Rishi came out of meditation, he realized the mistake that has happened. Maharaj Parikshit was immediately informed in a very peaceful and pious manner, respectfully, and told that this is what has been done by this young Brahmana boy. It is his mistake, but Parikshit Maharaj never asked to take the curse back. Person like him, a pure devotee, Lord had given him a darshan even before he was born, could have easily averted the curse by asking a pardon from there, but he doesn't do that because Parikshit Maharaj realized that this is probably the Lord's way of asking me to go back to him. He had been very happy king, fully in a material life, enjoying all the opulences that Lord had given him fully. So he took it as Lord's wish, and he never asked for any pardon. In the 7 days that that Parikshit Maharaj had, he left all the palaces, kingdoms, everything to his children and walked away without any clothes from the palace on the river Ganges, which was virtually at the doorstep of the palace. While walking, he met Sukadeva Goswami, who was sent by Lord Krishna to meet Parikshit Maharaj. And thus the conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami started. Both of them are pure devotees. Both of them are liberated souls. One knows Srimad Bhagavatam, learned from his father Vyasadeva, and is ready to teach that Srimad Bhagavatam with his pious language and understanding to Parikshit Maharaj, who has been a pure devotee, had done his occupational duties to the utmost care and perfection, and is now culminating his life into going back to Godhead. What wonderful combination could there be than this combination of Sukadeva Goswami teaching Srimad Bhagavatam continuously for 7 days and 7 nights in his next nectarian language, and after his thorough understanding and the messages that he gives would be clear and straightforward directly from Lord Krishna. And Sukadeva Goswami, who is a perfect hearer, has always performed his occupational duties perfectly well, being a pious and pure devotee of the Lord. And thus came the sequence of 7 days and 7 nights of Srimad Bhagavatam. When hearing the news about this, All the sages, saints, Mahatmas, rishis, and demigods from all over the universe came at Ganges River and Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. Lord Parikshit Maharaj had fasting, complete fasting of no water, no food for 7 days and 7 nights. And he, with great apt attention, he heard the entire Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Srila Sukadeva Goswami. And thus culminates the end of Canto 1. Srimad Bhagavatam continues as next 11 cantos, and beautiful part has just begun. The idea of covering the Canto 1 is person who gets initiated must have read Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam. Regrettably, it's a big book, takes a pretty long time to read. And let's presume you read it. It's difficult to remember either chronologically or sequentially. And thus, I have realized that if a viva questions are needed to be asked, then you must be sound about the events and the stories, principles of the events and the stories, and the philosophical background on which the stories are written with a limited carry home message. If you have this background very well done, you probably will be able to answer any question that may come up to you. And thus, we have given specific attention to some of the events that were happening all along the 19 chapters. And we went into great details of some of the things which are very popular amongst the devotees, like Kunti Maharani's prayers or Vishwadeva's instructions, etc., etc. I have covered it in such a way that probably any question that would ask to you, if you have attended attentively, you really don't need to brush up anywhere. This in itself is sufficient enough for you to answer any question. But Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, is a very important chapter if you want to pass the interview. Soon after Srimad Bhagavatam, soon after Bhagavad Gita, once they are satisfied with the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, they all scramble to Srimad Bhagavatam. And problems and issues and points in Srimad Bhagavatam certainly produces a negative result. And so, Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam, is very, very important, essential. If you have listened to it carefully, still I would suggest recordings are available. Take your time. Ultimately, it's on 4 hours only. You can listen to it carefully. I am not anywhere near, or I am just a neophyte like you. And so I might have my own follies and issues and the problems. So you might have listened to a hearing of twice or thrice. But if you do that, I'm sure any question that comes up, you would be able to solve it and answer it very well. For the benefit of everyone, last time we had put up the questions that were asked to various people, including me, and I would find that out and post it for you in the group. There are certain important slides that I feel if you want to revise, you probably can go through it quickly. And so I'll leave some 20, 25, 30 slides posted. Just give me a day or two. But I have those things almost ready as we did it last time. But don't take Srimad Bhagavatam very lightly. First canto is very important. And when questions not answered, it leaves a very bad mouth in the taste that you perceive even from people who are asking questions. So I would suggest work hard on it and get on with it. I thank you all for attending this class. We are having the question answers now. And my special gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, ISKCON Temple, Radha Govinda Temple, Bengaluru. His Grace Sri Namanishta Das Prabhuji, Aishwarya Subhada Mataji, who had been my teacher all through and very affectionate, loving mercy on me. And gratitude to all my other loving teachers, my obeisances, and Dandavat Pranam to all of you. Let us have any questions or answers, if you have any shortcomings or any addition or any comments, anything, because this is our last touch. Whatever I have, I'll post it over ultimately. But we might not meet again and again. Hare Krishna to everyone.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. It was a very nice and detailed class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you Prabhuji. Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna
Pranam.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Thank you,
Dandavat
Prabhuji.
Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Thank you to all of you. All my best wishes are with you. And so also the best wishes of Namanishta Das Prabhuji and Aishwarya Subhada Mataji. Hare Krishna to all of you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna
Thank
Prabhuji,
you.
thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.